My daughter hasn't spoken to her father in 4 months, and I've spent that entire time telling her to forgive him. I had no idea what I was asking her to forgive. My daughter is 15, and until 4 months ago, my husband was a good father, or at least I thought he was. Now she leaves rooms when he enters, refuses to sit near him at dinner, and looks through him like he doesn't exist. My husband comes to me every night swearing he has no idea what he did wrong. When I ask my daughter what happened, she just says, "Ask him," and refuses to explain further. The only thing I know is that something happened the weekend I was visiting my sister back in September, and my family has been broken ever since. My 9-year-old son barely speaks anymore, follows his sister everywhere like a shadow, and sleeps with every light on because he's suddenly terrified of the dark. I decide I need to figure out what happened to my family, so I start paying attention to everything. My daughter puts herself between her brother and her father constantly, positioning her body like a shield. My son flinches when his father raises his voice even slightly, freezing like a small animal that has spotted a predator. I confront my husband again about what happened that weekend, and he throws his hands up and says, "Why are you treating me like a criminal? She's going through a phase and you're making it worse by indulging her." I want to believe him because believing him would be so much easier. Then I find a drawing my son left on the kitchen table, a picture he made for his sister. It shows a small stick figure alone in a solid black room with tears streaming down its face, and a speech bubble that says, "Please let me out." Outside the black room, there's a bigger figure holding a key and smiling. I sit there staring at it with shaking hands before I go upstairs and find my daughter in her room. I close the door behind me and tell her I'm not leaving until she explains what happened to her brother. She shakes her head with exhausted eyes and says, "You wouldn't believe me anyway. You'd take his side like you always do. I tried to warn you months ago and you brushed me off." I tell her I found the drawing and I need to know what it means. I beg her to tell me what happened to my baby, and she starts to cry without making a sound. The front door opens downstairs, and my daughter's face changes instantly from grief to something harder and protective. My husband calls out asking where everyone is, and I hear my son's footsteps running up the stairs instead of toward his father's voice. He bursts into the bedroom and presses himself against his sister's side without a word, and I watch her wrap her arm around him automatically like she's done it 1,000 times before. My husband appears in the doorway a moment later and looks at the three of us standing there together, his wife and his children who won't meet his eyes. He asks what's going on and then points at our daughter and says, "This silent treatment has gone on long enough. You need to stop tearing this family apart with your attitude. You've been poisoning everyone against me over nothing." My daughter looks at him, and something inside her finally snaps after 4 months of silence. She turns to me and says, "You want to know what happened? He locked your son in the basement." I feel my stomach drop as she keeps going, her voice shaking with rage. "Your baby put on your heels while dad had friends over, just a little boy being silly. And the second those friends left, dad completely lost his mind. He dragged him down to the basement screaming about raising a real man instead of some pathetic little embarrassment. He locked him down there with no lights, no food, no water, and no bathroom for almost 14 hours until right before you came home." My husband takes a step forward, and my daughter pulls her brother behind her. I heard him screaming, and I begged dad to let him out, and he slapped me across the face and hid the key where I couldn't find it. "Your son wet himself in the dark, and when I finally got him out, he was so ashamed he made me swear never to tell anyone because he thought it was his fault for putting on those shoes." I look at my husband, and his face tells me everything. He isn't confused or outraged at a lie. He is furious that he got caught. I step in front of both my children and tell him to get out of this house before I call the police and let them handle what happened in that basement. He opens his mouth to argue, and I grab the lamp off my daughter's nightstand and hurl it at the wall beside his head. I tell him he has 30 seconds to disappear before I start screaming loud enough for every neighbor on the street to hear exactly what kind of man he is. He looks at me like he's never seen me before in his life, and then he turns and walks out the door. I lock it behind him and sink to the floor, and my children come down with me. My daughter is sobbing and saying she's sorry over and over, and I pull them both close and tell her she has nothing to be sorry for.